Welcome to my very messy workshop, and behind me my sort of EV test bench that I'm building really for my second project, so that I can assemble all of the parts here and make sure they work before transferring them into the car. This week though, this has come kind of into its own as I wrestled with getting the BMS working on my EV, my DIY EV, and I'll be honest, it's still a work in progress. I didn't capture a lot of this because it's kind of hard stuff to capture on video. Lots of back and forth on web chat and lots of little tweaks to code and lots of mucking around with pins and voltmeters and stuff like that. But I'll try and narrate for you a little bit what happened and fill in what visuals I can as I go along. So as you've seen on a previous episode, I plugged in my SpaceBalls ESP32 BMS board, which is here. If I just unplug it, I can wave it at you. This thing. Now this is a sort of evolution of the open source bits of SimpBMS, shifted to the ESP32 by Jamie and Robert and clever people like that. Jamie's had it running on his car for his VW pack, his VW GT pack for a while, but it was not running for BMWs. It wasn't designed for the BMW pack, or rather there was no code written for the BMW pack. So I installed my first one of those, got it on the car, miswired it, blew it up, put 12 volts on the 3v3 line by swapping a couple of pins, which was not smart. Fortunately, I had a spare in this one. And so I swapped the spare one in and decided to test it on the car initially, and nada. It couldn't read any of the cells in the car, any of the modules in the car. It was getting no response from the BMW hybrid pack secondary BMS modules, which are attached to each of the 5 modules in my BMW 330e pack. So lots of investigations started. First of all, checking the wiring multiple times. There were issues with the wiring, and this is where the test bench really came in. I could come and put it on the test bench, test things, get my multimeter out, check that there was continuity, etc. multiple times until I got that nailed. Connectors weren't right, pins hadn't been pushed in properly, some solder joints weren't great. I mean, there were all sorts of things that prevented that working, but got over that hurdle. But then found actually that the code didn't work, and lots of back and forth. We'd made some really just silly errors between us, as you might do naturally, porting a code to a completely new platform, and in Jamie's case, working on it on an unfamiliar battery pack. But between us, we'd missed a couple of silly things like starting the CRC, the cyclic redundancy check piece of code just wasn't starting, and various other bits just weren't starting either. So we nailed that, we got it, and eventually we got it hooked up to my test battery pack down here, which is my second pack that's meant to be going in the car out there. And that's when disaster struck. Unfortunately, I don't have screen capture software on this Ubuntu machine. And the eagle eye will notice this is running on a Teensy, not on my ESP32 BMS. But what you can see, I hope, is that my second pack is not in great shape. So some voltages down at the upper ones, not even the particularly upper ones in places. 1.49 cell 70. So pack 5, or module 5 on my second pack is clearly not in good shape, and pack 1 is not in great shape either, and none of them are in good shape at all. So a lot of work needed if I'm going to rescue those, if they're even rescuable. So there's going to be some manual charging trying to get that back. Short version, pack 2's screwed. This is my solution to the Duff battery issue. A little power supply where I can do manual charging of modules. I hope the BMS can do some balancing, but at least get them all up to a reasonable level, or try to. It just runs off an old laptop power supply. Could do with a case. And these connectors actually slot quite neatly horribly crimped, I know, but it's locked quite neatly into the BMW battery connectors. It's not fun jumping this into 60 volts, but it works. I've done it before to restore the battery pack, the other battery pack, or is it this battery pack? I'm not sure. After I ran it down, it would make sense if it's this one that I screwed up by driving too far in. We shall see. Worst case scenario, take one of the good modules and make the other pack up to 96S, a bit more voltage. So that's where I'm up to. Short video. I've run out of time this week. I wanted to actually show the BMS working in the car. I was hoping to even get to the point of automating charging, because we have actually done all the code for that now. In theory, I should be able to plug in my charger into the charge port. The car should wake up with the PP detect. Fill in your own joke here. It should allow the BMS to trigger the inverter, so set the inverter to run mode without actually putting any voltage to the direction switch, so the car can't move, but it will close the contactors and then send the CAN bus commands to the Outlander charger to start it charging, and top it off to the preset level through the serial interface on the BMS. So in theory I can get all that running. I can also crack on with some fun bits, fun/, really useful bits, like gauges. I'm not going to try to make the old analog gauges work, at least not at the moment. I'm going to pull at least one of the analog gauges out and swap it with a small 1.8-inch screen. Again, insert size jokes here. I've got most of this working on a little proto board. I've got all the graphics working. I'm just having a few troubles with the CAN bus interface. Anyone who's played with these little things, the little SN65 CAN bus transceivers, will know that they are super flaky. There's lots of fakes out there, and so it was quite hard to do debugging to work out what's gone wrong. I think it's actually just my code now, but I'll get there. I'm off for a week. I'm not going to be making any videos for a week, so after you see this one you might not see any for a week or two, but then I'll be back, and should the rain ever actually stop, I'll show you the car self-charging, I'll show you my progress on gauges, and I'll finally get out and do some 0 to 60 runs and see what performance is like once I've got a bit more confidence in it all. I haven't actually really been able to put many miles on it and get some confidence in the setup and make sure that it's all good before I start putting it through its paces, but all that to come soon. Thanks for watching. If you like this stuff, please do like and subscribe, the usual request, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.